Chris Grayling, you've had a tour around Harlow and the problem here. What's your assessment?
Well, it's clearly a very big problem to have that many travellers not just coming into the area temporarily, but actually clearly staying in the area, moving from site to site to site. It places huge pressure on the local community, it places huge pressure on the local council and on services. And something clearly will have to be done to resolve it. I think that there's two parts to the challenge. The first is making sure that the law is properly enforced. In my own experience in my own constituency is when that happens, the problem tends to reduce. But also I think we need to look at the legal position, and I'm certainly keen to see if we can identify any loopholes in the law which would prevent people simply occupying parkland, for example. I mean, I just don't think, whatever the rights and wrongs of whether there are sufficient sites available for travellers, occupying places like children's play parks is simply not acceptable to me.
Does it, when it comes to the police, because there's been a bit of a tension now with Robert Halfon and the Police Crime Commissioner, but it's not a blame game here between who has got the most authority, is there?
Well, I think the important thing is that the law should be upheld. And I know from my own experience in my own constituency is that if the law is upheld and if people who occupy sites like public parks illegally are moved on immediately, then they tend not to come back. He says with fingers crossed, it's been okay for a few years. And I'm a great believer that regardless of all the other factors about how we address the issues facing the traveller community, simply occupying public parks, depriving local children of access to their playgrounds, leaving behind lots of rubbish, trails of debris isn't an acceptable way to behave, and that's what the law should deal with.
But any proposal about new laws, that's not going to happen overnight, and we're 20 weeks from a general election, that's not going to happen, is it?
Indeed not. So, I mean, it's something that's clearly becoming an issue again. I mean, the extraordinary situation in Thurrock where huge trail of debris left behind by a group of people who've been there. You know, there are clearly issues I think that still have to be addressed, and I am now giving serious thought within my own area as to what else we might be able to do to fill in any loopholes that are there.
And just finally, because I was just slipping into that Thurrock question for a second, I interviewed Maria Eagle yesterday, and even though it's not sort of her area, she was making a comment about environment agencies and lack of resources, lack of officers there. So she was almost putting the ball into Tory or coalition cuts. Is that fair?
Well, that's what you'd expect from an opposition politician. It's of course never as simple as that. The truth is the powers are there, they need to be enforced. And the thing that baffles me in Thurrock is just how is it possible to have something that's clearly been done on an industrial scale without anybody actually doing anything about it to stop it. And I think some pretty hard questions should be asked of those who could have done something about it. But more particularly now, and I talked to council officials today, they have, I think, to look at different ways of taking action even now against those people who were either involved or responsible.
Minister, thank you very much.